Have you ever thought it might be fun to leave everything behind and just take off traveling? Joining me today on Library Life to discuss his library program, Vagabonding Around the World, is Mindful Vagabond Brian Michalski. Welcome.
Thank you, Cathy.
Brian, since you are a self-professed vagabond, I'd like to start out by getting your definition of what a vagabond is.
Sure. So a vagabond is traditionally somebody who wanders maybe without purpose. So by putting the mindful in my title, it gives a traveler who is excited to see the world a purpose, a reason to explore their passions and what excites them to help others.
Okay, so obviously your passion is travel. What sparked your interest in travel?
Actually, my parents were amazing with making sure, every school year, the summer break, that we would go around the country. We enjoyed the Pacific Northwest, the Four Corners, even got up to Niagara Falls, and that really fueled my lust for travel. And then specifically, my grandparents had a photo of themselves in front of the Taj Mahal from 1980.
Wow.
And I remember even from the age of 3 years old, seeing this photo. I would be playing tag with my cousin, and it would always stop me dead in my tracks. And I would look at that photo and think, what is that building? That doesn't look like a Chicago skyscraper. Why does Grandma have that traditional Indian wear? What is that? So they were always open books as far as being culturally aware, accepting others, and being really ahead of the curve in that sense.
Now, a couple of years ago, you made a pretty gutsy move. You quit your 9-to-5 lifestyle, and you decided to travel. What sparked that decision?
I did. So I was a teacher, primary levels, kindergarten, first and second grade.
Right.
And while I loved teaching kids, I loved making those connections with families and local communities, I knew that I wanted to do something more and to really challenge myself. So in going beyond the backyard, so to speak, of my local community, I knew that if I could still have that community service mentality while going abroad, that would be a great solution.
So how does one plan a journey of this nature?
Yeah, good question. So it did take a lot of planning. Now, financially, I knew that just the teaching job couldn't be enough. So I knew that I needed to get a second job. So I actually waited tables at night while I taught 25 kindergartners by day.
Wow.
So 80-hour work weeks, that certainly helped put aside a budget. And then it also came down to just the simplicity of picking places around the world that interested me. The animals of Australia, the street food of Southeast Asia, of course India, seeing the Taj Mahal for myself in person. So it was that passion and preparation that really allowed me to make the leap and eventually be able to walk away from the teaching job to get on that one-way flight to Hawaii.
Of course, you do need to be mindful. You need your passport, you need visas in some cases, etc. Do you just arrive in the country and just start traveling, or do you have like a map of what you're going to do?
So before my trip, I knew that I wanted to work in Australia, and that was very simple. You apply for the work visa online. They basically just make sure that there's money on your credit card and that you're not a criminal. And there's a program called WOOF, and it stands for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. And that is an organization across the world where, in exchange for room and board, you can work for a farmer. So I signed up for WOOF and worked as on a farm on an organic vineyard in Christchurch, New Zealand. So I stacked the deck with opportunities ahead of time, kind of figured it out as I got to those places, but allowed myself the flexibility. So to not book all those flights ahead of time, to not buy a 1-year around the world pass. And that really allowed me to, if I didn't like a place, I could leave early. If I found a fellow backpacker, I could link up with them and travel a similar path.
So let's talk about this trip that you took. Where'd you go first, and what were your accommodations, etc.? Did you just, camp, or what did you do?
I did a bit of camping. I enjoyed staying in hostels, believe it or not. I think there's some myths to debunk about hostels, but in general, they're extremely clean and secure, and you meet other travelers from all around the world. Australians, Germans, literally, Chinese, everybody are packed into these hostels.
Right.
And they're cheaper accommodations, so you're able to extend your travel longer.
Right.
I also stayed in bed and breakfast or guest home situations. Southeast Asia offers beautiful, beautiful stays for a fraction of the price of what you would probably find in the United States. So I was very open to pushing myself outside of my comfort zone.
Right.
and having to share a bedroom with 7 other people sometimes.
Well, I was thinking that, when you are a vagabond, to a certain extent, you have to rely upon the kindness of strangers.
Oh, absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about some of the people that you met along the way.
I met unbelievable folks as I traveled, people who were so giving, and one group of people in particular I want to talk about are my coworkers and bosses at the restaurants I ended up working at in Australia.
Okay.
And again, I didn't know for sure that I wanted to be a server until I got to Melbourne, Australia, fell in love with that beautiful city, and 2 chefs that I worked with at this restaurant, Shane and Rami, loved Southeast Asia so much. And in fact, that's why they opened their restaurants in Melbourne, was because they had traveled the region dozens of times together, and they got back and said, this is special food. We've got to show Australians what this is about. So they said, Brian, you have to go in depth in Southeast Asia. I honestly barely knew what Myanmar was, prior to this trip. You have to walk the streets of Vietnam. You have to hike the hills of Myanmar. Try the food in Thailand. I mean, it was just really their inspiration that got me going. And then all these other backpackers who I still talk to this day,
right.
Maybe even 12 or 15 people who I consider good friends. So they know they can have a place to crash in Chicago when they're traveling, but they, of course, extend that invite. So even one of my final months of travel, I had not planned to go to Europe at all, because budget-wise, things were very tight near the end of that 22-month journey. And they said, Brian, absolutely not. You cannot just fly over. Please stop with us. Please stay in my family home. So I met the parents, I met grandma, I met the dog, and I got to see them in their element. And they were so happy to show me around. So like I said, several people who I'm still so happy to call really good friends.
So just to map out your trip, you started from Chicago, went to Hawaii, then where did you go?
And then I farmed in New Zealand for 2 weeks while traveling some of the other parts of the island. From there, I spent 3 months in Australia working. I explored the country a bit before that. And then I headed into Southeast Asia. And about halfway through that, I thought, you know what? I've still got about 4 months on my Australian work visa. Why don't I call Travis and see if he'll give me my job back? So in leaving my serving position, traveling Southeast Asia, I actually came back totally unplanned. That was a pivot point of my trip. Maxed out my work visa, headed back into Southeast Asia, and then from there got to explore India, Europe, and even Mexico City, as well as Cuba, before finally returning home.
My goodness, you were all over the place.
Yeah.
Were there any unforeseen struggles that you encountered along the way?
Yes, there were certainly several. I was in Malaysia, the Borneo section of that country, and I was about to hike Kinabalu Mountain. And I needed money, cash, to give to the tour guide. So in inserting my ATM card, it said $400, and it didn't pop out of the machine.
Oh.
So I got it back, got the card back, tried the machine next to it, tried $400 again. Still nothing came out. But both times it actually said that I received the money. So what that in turn did was drain my account to about $6.
Oh my goodness.
Gave me no cash in my pocket. So I had to wire money from a family friend. And in that moment, of course, you could panic, you could freak out, you could just, say, I've got to go home. But
yes.
I knew in situations like that to remain calm, to think about my resources, my network, my support, and to really tap into that.
Oh, good. I mean, that would be a scary situation. You're so far away from home, needless to say.
Other side of the world, yes.
Okay, so that everything being said, would you recommend this to the people out there to pick up and maybe backpack in different places of the world? And what would you suggest they do beforehand?
Sure. I would highly recommend it. And the reason I say that is because my version of vagabonding around the world may be different from your version, may be different from their version. So what I like about this is that it is so flexible. There is no right way or wrong way to do it. Of course, you're going to encounter struggles, but the rewards that you get from taking this risk to leave it all behind in a lot of senses and to get out there and push yourself outside of your comfort zone, that is really the main reward of the journey. And then, as you said, things to do before, things you can do right now. There are credit cards that offer airline miles. That got me the $5 flight to Hawaii to kick off my trip.
Oh my goodness, yes.
There's hotel miles, so to speak, points that you can redeem. So after a few maybe dingy hostels, it was very refreshing to have those luxurious hotel stays. So there are credit cards that people can get, now in that regard. And then even books to read. I recommend Vagabonding by Rolf Potts. That really shows the how-to. And that gave me the confidence to be like, okay, I'm a normal guy. I can make this happen. And then Jump Ship by Josh Ship is another text that I devoured, and that gave me the confidence to walk away from teaching while layering on that serving job, to put money aside, to then be able to, do the research to take that flight.
Now, I know that you're back to a 9-to-5 job. Any future plans for vagabonding?
Yes, so I'll be doing the library talks full-time through the spring and summer, and beyond that, it's a bit of a mystery, but on the radar is heading to South America. I have about 3 countries in mind, but I would like to teach English in South America. So while I worked with Cambodian orphans, took care of elephants in Southeast Asia, and did other service-oriented things, I really do want to get back to teaching. And I think learning another language is something I need to do to challenge myself, and just to connect with young people and to give them the knowledge and the inspiration to maybe do their own trip someday.
Well, Brian, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being with me today.
My pleasure, Cathy. Thank you.
For more information regarding vagabonding around the world or any upcoming Mount Prospect Public Library event, contact the library at area code 847-253-5675 or visit our website at www.mppl.org.